Hello guys and welcome back to another Fun Factory tour, and today for our 7th episode of the series we will be checking out Deniability's beautiful 5x5 core challenge build, and should you wish to check it out yourself, remember you can head over to satisfactorytips.com and download the save yourself. The Satisfactory 5x5 rule set can also be found on the website, but the basic rules are as follows. The manufacturing part of your factory must be done in a single 5x5 tower, but the logistics can be done outside of this, which is why you can see this second tower stood alongside it. And you're also allowed to have a separate tower for power, which you can also see here. Deniability has, over the course of 150 hours, built this gorgeous factory that ends up producing turbo motors, and at its peak 1.2 million points per minute go into the sink. Unfortunately though, update 4 aluminium changes have meant that the factory's setup has a few malfunctions in it, but regardless, this is well worth checking out. Starting off in the hub, we find ourselves on the Ark, which is a platform that supports the space elevator. But taken to the amount of detail that's been built around the space elevator, Deniability's approach throughout is all in the details. The little cutouts in the architecture, the gentle slopes on the end edges, the color scheme, everything has been given careful consideration, and I think it all looks great. Now, before we go ahead and take a look at the manufacturing part of the factory, I thought it would be best to check out the way that Deniability pools all the resources to the factory, favouring little outposts for the buses to run along that gradually get larger as more resources are collected. There's also great use of continuity throughout the save, where the same system is used throughout. You can see this is used for both the raw resources but also things like the crude oil as well. However, due to the sheer amount of water that's needed for Deniability's build, you can find a water extractor plant behind the power plant section, and this is a massive building that houses a total of 26 water extractors that are fully overclocked. The vast majority of the water is used in the power plant, with a little overflowing into the actual factory, but you'll notice there are very few pumps being used. This is because Deniability has a small water tower that gives the majority of the water the head lift it needs to elevate the levels. Our next stop is the power plant section, and it produces almost 12,000 megawatts of power for the factory from just coal power. And I love the foundation of the plant and the gorgeous piping that it has. The coal is also brought up the factory very cleanly with the use of elevators in the same section of each side, with little balconies set above them. And each floor houses a total of 12 coal plants, which are overclocked to a maximum of 250%. Now, I love the general feel inside the factory, the glass foundations partnered with the walkways, and also the effort to paint the inside walls as well to continue the style throughout looks great. And I also love the liquid pipes that are underneath and the way he's placed them. In between this building and the factory, we have the storage area. This also has a hypertube elevator system which goes to all the platforms of the coal power plant. Now, I love that it's all closed off and the extra work that's been put into painting all the walls compared to the rest of the factory. It really does stand out. And of course, all excess items from the storage facility are overflown to be sunk in the awesome sink. Now, under this section, we also have another small water extractor farm, which of course is overclocked and sends all the water into the various levels of the factory to be processed, which we'll get to shortly. But first, let's take a look at the logistics tower. This tower has to transport the majority of resources up and down the factory, as well as the player, which is done by hypertube. This section is split into 2 individual needs. On the back side, we have the logistics, and in front of that, we have the personal hypertubes, which leads to each section of the factory. You can also find on each floor that there is a container which shows what's being produced on that said floor, and the excess of course is overflowing to the sink. On the bottom floor we have storage for items that have been manufactured from the spoils of exploration, such as colour cartridges and solid biomass. Above it we have the processing section, and I like the clean design and use of walkways. You can follow the outer walkways up to the storage area, where you'll also find a small doggo farm, as well as the first main floor of the factory where pure iron ingots are produced. Thanks to the power wall mounts, there are some really clean cable lines, and this floor is repeated above. And above that we also have the wet concrete, crystal quartz and silica being produced in the same format. This is then repeated for the copper and the caterium before moving to the assembly floors, producing Nobelisk, and above that the steel foundries and various steel products. Now, though Deniability doesn't squeeze the maximum amount of buildings that can be done on a given floor, he does overclock his machines to the maximum effect, allowing him to produce a lot of resources in a relatively small space. Moving up within the factory we have Bauxite Production, but unfortunately, as mentioned, update 4 has ruined this production line. Following this we have many more production floors for things like copper wire, cable and iron plates, as well as things like reinforced iron plates, which use the stitched iron plate recipe, and modular frames as well. The more we progress through these items, the more compact the builds get. Take for example the high-speed connector floor. I've used this particular loading method in my old 5x5, but Deniability went ahead and tucked in an assembler for circuit boards as well as the viewing platform. A huge amount of effort must have gone into this, making everything fit within the confined space. And next we do find ourselves on the motor and rotor floor. Now I love the assemblers in these two separate sections split by a walkway through. This whole factory feels very much like it's some kind of scientific lab, and with each section having a viewing area and then a factory area. I love it. All this production culminates in the end producing turbo rigger motors, having just hit the mist box, giving the final layer a very eerie feel. This whole factory looks great, and I'm very much looking forward to seeing the city Deniability has built in a separate save and sent to me, which we will cover at a later date. But guys, if you do want to check out this save yourself, make sure to check out satisfactorytips.com. I'll make sure to put a link in the description below. Anyway guys, thank you so much for watching, and thank you so much to our amazing supporters for letting this happen. Most notably, our Solar Eclipse patrons, the Calamity and Cerebral Tag, as well as our Lunar Eclipse patrons, Dixie Chris and James Irwin, as well as our Blood Moon of today, which today is Jonah Dent. Anyway guys, until next time, as always, ciao for now.